A Swift Kick in the Ass, Episode 96.
All big changes start with a swift kick in the ass. Join the journey of lifelong friends, John Curran and Tom Stewart, as they make conventional thought bend over and take a boot to the keister. Warning, listeners may notice a force equal to or greater than needed to get your ass moving. A swift kick in the ass, living life on your terms.
Welcome to A Swift Kick in the Ass, a podcast about creating positive change in your life. I am John Curran. Tommy is on medical leave and won't be joining us for today's episode, Playing Well with Others. How we play well with others can take many different shapes and forms. One of the ways I try to establish rapport and build relationships with others is through the use of humor, and hopefully you get my humor. Now, my friends, as well as my wife and kids, will be the first to tell you that some of my jokes are not funny at all. They're often drawn out and could best be defined as a dad joke. So I don't expect everyone to laugh. But I don't let that stop me from trying to find humor in almost everything I do, and I really do believe that humor is an art. The beauty of a joke is found in the eye of the beholder, or the person who tells the joke. Others may not laugh, but I found this to be funny, and I found that people's feedback also helps me refine my art or my craft. So not all my attempts to make people laugh are going to make people laugh. Some of them are flops, and there are times that my jokes are seen as quick and witty, which is what I aim for. Now, I've heard that in all humor, there is a dark truth. And the truth is that I can't really help but to dig deeper into my thoughts and into my humor to find that truth. I try to use humor as a way to live with the truth sometimes. And it's something I've always done, and I like that about me, and it's never going to change. So if you don't like my sense of humor, that's okay. And with that being said, I could find no better example of how dark truths are found in humor and help us relate to one another than in a scene from one of my favorite movies, The 40-Year-Old Virgin. Now, be forewarned, as the title implies, The 40-Year-Old Virgin is not a kid's movie. It is rated R. So be advised. There's some crude language here, and some might find it disgusting. But it's not kid-friendly. It's not meant to be kid-friendly. And when my wife first saw this novel, or this movie for the first time, she scowled for about the first 10 minutes. And then realizing that there was a lot more to the movie than just the crude language and the humor that was being used, that there was actually purpose behind the use of this foul language, she finally started to crack a smile and began to laugh along with me at it. And she also considers this movie to be one of the funniest all-time movies ever. It's funny how that works. So just note that I'm going to paraphrase the scene. It's not verbatim, and therefore it is toned down a little bit. But with that being said, if you have young kids in earshot or are easily offended by foul language, you may want to consider pausing this scene, maybe fast-forwarding it for just, 30 seconds or less than that. Or maybe you just need to hit stop and find another podcast to listen to. The truth here is that some people won't want to play with you, and that's okay. Remember where this all started. All jokes hold a dark inner truth. So here's the quote from this Brooklyn guy character named Mooj from the 40-Year-Old Virgin. I don't think I'll try to put on his accent, but it's much funnier with the Indian accent. Life is not about cocks and ass and tits and butthole pleasures. It's not about these rusty trombones and these dirty Sanchez. Life is about people It's about connections. Boy, that was a bad impression. But hopefully you get the point. Said without the joke, life is about connections. It's about the relationships we form with other people. And even if this connection that you form is limited to, say, to saying hello with a smile when someone passes you when walking down the street, it doesn't matter. How we play with others that share this world with us matters. And that's really the point. If someone you don't know smiles at you and says hello, just in passing, doesn't that make you feel good and want to pass that along to someone else? Thinking about the opposite of that. If someone sneers at you from across the room, doesn't that make you wonder why a total stranger would do that? And maybe what's going on in their lives? Or maybe you're taking it personally and thinking that they're actually really truly sneering at you and that it's your fault. And, that's a whole other subject for another time. In the case where someone is sneering at me from across the room, a total stranger, I like to play devil's advocate. I smile back, and sometimes I even give them a little wave, just to make them wonder. A smile is the most disarming thing that you could ever do. It might even make them laugh and maybe change their mood, because chances are it's not about you. It's about them. Something is going on in their life, or the way they feel about their lives is impacting how they portray that to the world. So, let me tell you a little story. Back when I was working my way through graduate school at a hospital in Atlanta, the healthcare industry was absolutely booming. So much so that the hospital had expanded so fast that it was starting to run out of parking. And what they did is they changed the parking lot to a parking garage. They started to build a new parking garage when I was working there. And like many of the other employees, I was directed to park next door at a medical center complex that specialized in spinal cord injuries. While this new lot was being built, it was a temporary inconvenience, but it added about 15 minutes to my daily commute because I had to park next door and then walk through this maze of underground corridors which connected the two buildings. Back then, an extra 15 minutes of sleep had a huge impact on me. It was just a luxury that I really could not afford. Sleep was just precious to me, especially when you're in your mid-20s, you're single, and beauty sleep was really, really important to me. You could just sleep when you're a kid and you don't have responsibilities like I do now. But anyhow, back then I did have a lot of responsibilities. I was going to school full time. I was working full time, and during the day I was working a full time job, and at night I was taking a full-time schedule of classes. So I was a full-time employee and a full-time student. And this was what I consider to be the no-life part of my life. I had no life. I had no social life. I was continuously stressed out. And in fact, I almost gave myself an ulcer. That was, not pleasant, as I had to try to deal with all of this stress. But, this was something I brought on myself, and I knew that it was going to be a test of my endurance. It was a challenge that was not going to last forever. I just needed to keep pushing myself, and then sooner or later, I would get enough credits and I would graduate. As long as I kept pushing myself and continuing on the program, I would eventually get through and graduate. I knew that. But, in the meantime, I was working my ass off and I was burning the candle at both ends. And, after a while, I didn't know if I could do it. It was a huge challenge. It was a huge undertaking. And as I said, sleep was a major luxury at this time of my life. I couldn't afford it. And I was, at that point, a pretty cranky person, especially in the morning when I was, going to school until, late at night. Then I'd have to come home and study or finish my papers. I had papers due every week. It was an intensive program. And, I had no life. I had very little social life. My life consisted of working by day, going to school by night, and I worked in a patient financial services department. So as you can imagine, all day I was dealing with people who were upset with their hospital bill and came in to question the bill or for themselves or one of their loved ones. Many of the people I dealt with were dealing with health issues, and some had even lost a family member. And they still owed the hospital for the care they received. It was very stressful, and I met all types of different people. It was so tough and so stressful that by the time I got home, I wanted to just withdraw from the world. I would close my curtains. I would unplug the phone. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I just became mad at the world. And, one day at this job, I had just come in the morning, and this lady walked in and requested a copy of her husband's hospital bill, which was, pretty par for the course. That's what I was there to provide the service to the patients and their families. And so as I looked up her husband's account, I realized that this was a Medicaid patient. And by law, I was not allowed to provide them with a bill. And the reason why was because Medicaid was picking up the entire bill for this patient. And if, as part of that process and as part of the system, the patient or their family, they were required to provide, additional insurance information and so forth. And since the state was picking up the bill, then there was an opportunity for people to withhold information. And if they had their copy of their bill, they could present it to an insurance company for a bill that they didn't pay for, that the state paid for, and actually profit from being sick. So, I was not legally able to provide the bill to her. And I informed the lady, who was the first customer of the day, first person that came in, and said, I'm sorry, ma'am, but I'm unable to provide this bill to you because your husband was a Medicaid patient, or this was a Medicaid account, and therefore am by law not allowed to provide you with a bill. She looked at me and she says, "You're not sorry. You're an asshole." That was how my day started. And I was just taken back, and of course I was very polite, and I just said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, I can't help you, and have a nice day." But, that's how my day started, and it actually got better from that point. But, that was my world back then. I was working full time. I was going to school full time, and I had no time. So no sleep, a lot of stress, and this happened day in and day out. So another morning, as I was, dragging my cranky self from the parking lot located next door to the hospital, and walking through the corridors for another day in the meat grinder, as I used to call it, I passed another patient. He was a man in his 50s in the corridor as I was walking my way into work, and I know I was cranky that day. Chances are I was probably hungover a little bit. I was tired. I was cranky. I was not happy with myself or with life. I was very stressed out. And, this man looks up at me, catches my eye, looks me straight in the eyes as he's passing in the hallway, and he gives me a big smile, and he says, "Good morning." I hope you have a great day. Now, this man didn't know me, and in fact, he didn't miss a beat. He just kept on rolling down the hall. I was just passing him. What it's important to mention is that this man was a paraplegic. He was strapped down on his belly on this custom stretcher that allowed him some mobility. But, he was paralyzed. He was just by himself on this stroller with these big wheels that enabled him to move around. And, I don't remember if I was actually able to return the greeting. I probably grunted something to him, but it happened, very, very fast. And as I said, I was pretty cranky. And I'm sure I had a grimace on my face and, not enjoying life. But here was this man, I was so consumed, I guess, in my own life and about everything that was going on and how terrible things were and how I was so stressed out. And here comes this man that I didn't know, paralyzed, and he has a better attitude than I did about life. He had a smile on his face. He offered a greeting to someone, a total stranger, to say, good morning. I hope you have a good day. I guess he saw that in my face about that I was having a rough time, and he wanted to share a little joy. But, as I think more and more about it, at that point in my path, in my journey, I think I was in my mid-20s, my life, to me, it seemed like it was crap. I had no time to myself. It was work, school. And I was actually at a point where I was thinking about giving it up because it was just so difficult. And then that man passed me by, and his life was, severely limited by his medical condition. And compared to my concerns, it was a different ballgame. He had it so much worse, and there was probably very, very little hope of him making things better for himself. And here I was, a little bit hungover, tired, grumpy, and in a position to where, I had created for myself to try to educate myself and better my situation. And this man was paralyzed, probably for life, and he was cheerful and happy to be alive. I guess he may have been under some type of medication that made him happy. I don't know. But he still had a smile on his face, and he's in this on this stretcher, paralyzed. It was life-changing for me. I never saw that man after that, but I have thought of that man, decades later now. He made that one point in my life made me rethink my view of the world. And let's just face it, my life's problems at that time, they were temporary. They were they were with purpose because I was trying to get better educated, and it was a direct result of my own decisions. I knew that this was going to be short-lived. This part of my life was not going to be forever, and all the challenge and all the effort and everything that I was putting into it, it would be worth it in the end. I just had to get through it. I'm thinking back, I know that my crankiness, it wasn't pleasant for me. It wasn't pleasant for others around me. And to be quite honest, I was not playing well with others back then. I was cranky. I was miserable, and I'm sure I let that show. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I didn't have much of a social life back then. I was so miserable, no one wanted to hang with me. I ended up getting through with it. But, that man on the stretcher, he had no choice in the matter. I'm not sure what caused his paralysis. But no doubt he adapted to his situation, a lot like Tommy is doing right now. Tommy didn't ask to have brain tumors or brain cancer. He didn't ask for his life to take a turn down this path, but he's adapting, just like this man did. He is accepting it and making the best out of his situation. I think that's all that any one of us can do. We don't ask for these things. We wouldn't want them to happen, but if they do happen and we can't change it, we just have to sometimes accept that and share with the world, some simple advice. I hope you have a good day. I'm going to try to make the best out of my day, and I hope that you try to make the best out of yours, because we're all in this together. Maybe he could tell by the look on my face just by passing me down the hall that I was cranky and I needed to hear that. I don't know what the purpose was of, maybe he did that for everybody. Maybe that's just the type of person he was. But in my life, I think I needed that micro lesson, that teachable moment. And it doesn't really matter if he knew I needed it or not. The fact remains is that I had that lesson in my life, and it became very personal to me and changed the way I view the world to this very day. When things start getting tough, I think about that moment in my life and that man's actions, which helped me pursue my my degrees and get through it. And his small gesture had this multiplier effect. And I'm so thankful that he made that gesture and took that action. It gave me strength to continue, and all the way through graduation. And, even though that man was paralyzed and saddled, belly down on a stretcher, he gave me the biggest swift kick in the ass and left a size 13 boot mark right on my hiney. That exists to this day. I remember it. So, I hope that you have learned from my experience and can apply it to experiences in your own life that, we interact with each other. We are built, our lives are built on the connections that we have with each other and that we make throughout our lives. They can have profound, deep influence on on us and on others, whether we recognize that influence or not. We all affect each other. And as I said, I was working my way through school. In many ways, at that point, I was seeing my life as, I was a self-made man. I was doing this all on my own. I was working very diligently and hard and making a lot of sacrifices. I, in my own mind, was self-made. But we all have people that help us along the way, get wherever we're going. And I think it's important to recognize that no one is truly self-made. We can't just do this by ourselves. Even if we really want to, we have to interact with the outside world. We have to interact with others who share this world with us. And it's through these interactions that help us perceive the world in a certain way. And it has a profound impact on us, and we have a profound impact on others, whether or not we do that, and the brutally honest truth is that a lot of people have helped us throughout our lives to get us to where we are right here and right now. And, whether this is someone that, that you've connected with in passing or by sharing some amount of time with, or whether or not you've established a deep, caring relationship with that person and brought them into your life as a close friendship or a close relationship. It doesn't matter to what degree the relationship is. They're going to make some type of difference or an impact in your life. Now, there may be people that we don't play well with, and there are people that we may not like, and people that we just could do without. And I think that's okay, because we're not going to get along with everybody. And there are some people that we simply won't get along with no matter how hard we try or how much we'd like to get along with them. It's okay, because we're all learning from each other, and from some people we learn what to do, and other people we learn what not to do. And we teach other people what to do and what not to do through our own actions. It's really cool, I think, the way, if you think about it in that context, how we connect with each other and how important that is. Now, as much as I take pride in my own accomplishments, I think the message here is that it can be somewhat self-limiting to just acknowledge that you are where you are because of your own actions. It's just not true. We are where we are not only because of our own actions, but because of all those other people that our lives have touched. That is what's brought us here to where we are today. We're all part of our own journeys together, and the terms of our own life are going to overlap with the terms of others that we have to live and share our world with. So, if you're having troubles with people in your life, as we all do, there's going to be people that we don't get along with, maybe some people that we have disagreements with, especially those who are close to us. Think about those relationships and take the time to think about what you can do to make that relationship better with them. I think many times, instead of offering what we can do to make it better, our minds are so trained or so conditioned to not offer what we can do or what we're willing to do, or the parameters in which we find the terms agreeable. Instead, we offer the things that we can't or won't do, and that simply doesn't help the relationship. I think we all do that. Both sides of both people involved, if they're only offering up what they won't do or what's not agreeable or what they want to change, that doesn't help you move forward. It does help you move forward if you offer what you will do and what you are able to do and what you can agree to. Focus on the positive and focus what you bring to the table, and have the other person do the same thing. If you can do that, you're going to move that relationship forward. You're going to strengthen it, and you're not going to lose yourself in the process, by agreeing to something that you really don't want to do, or can't do, or just, simply don't want to do. If you can't negotiate that way, and the only thing you can offer are the things that you can't or won't do, that actually signals to the other person that you want to negotiate, to be able to walk away from the negotiation table, to walk away from the relationship. If you're just butting heads and you're being stubborn and you're saying, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to do that, I don't want to do that, that tells the other person that, you probably don't really want to be there. And the same goes if the other person's doing it as well. If there's nothing that you're willing to do that is going to help improve the relationship, it might be better just to stop wasting your energy and move on and walk away. That's okay, because like I said, sometimes playing well with others means not playing with them at all, and making that decision It takes two people to play, and it can't just be one person who wants to do it and the other one doesn't want to. You have to come to some agreeable terms that's acceptable to all involved. Connections with other people are not one-way streets. Relationships are not one-way streets. Friendships, love relationships. It's not just what one person wants. Relationships are people coming together in some common interest. So focusing on what you can do to make a relationship better is going to get you farther in your negotiations and closer to a life on your terms. To wrap this up, I think I'll bring it back to where we started, in that in all humor we find there is a dark truth. All the things that we kid about and laugh about, there is some truth or reality to it, and that's why it makes it funny. In fact, what makes it funny is that when something happens that you don't expect, that's when people laugh most. And I think the dark truth about relationships is that we don't, sometimes the best way to better the relationship is by ending the relationship. If you can't come to terms that are acceptable to both people, then it's a signal that you won't play well with each other, and that means that you shouldn't play with them at all. Unfortunately, this is one of the dark truths of relationships that may cause us not to laugh at all. Yes, it can be sad. However, living life on your terms means that we can renegotiate the terms of our life, even if that means walking away. It's really our choice and our decision to make. Ultimately, we decide how we play with others. So let's leave it here in hopes that this dark truth gives you some food for thought and helps you improve your relationships, helps you play well with others, and helps you along your journey of living life on your terms. Until next time, this is your host, John Curran. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of A Swift Kick in the Ass, and that today's topic inspires you to get your ass moving and living on your terms. Please take a moment to rank this episode on iTunes or wherever you get this podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Visit our website at aswiftkickintheass.com. Have a great day.